Today is the anniversary of the day that Martin Luther King was assassinated, and the world will give you a million reasons to do something, and you will always find a million and one excuses as to why you shouldn't do that thing. I wrote this in February, and I'm going to share it with you. So 4 years ago, we moved to the South, and an interesting string of events led me to a Goodwill outlet store. So if you don't know, everything that doesn't sell at the Goodwill goes to the Goodwill outlet, and you will just find mass amounts of items in large bins. And so I took home many books that day, and it changed the trajectory of my life forever. I'm going to tell you about one book in particular that made a really big impact, and I am going to keep some of the details of that book to myself, but I saw a certain book and something inside caught my eye. I couldn't help my curiosity, and besides, this place charges by weight, so super cheap. And that day I brought home a whole stack of eclectic books. So as I started to further explore this book and its content and author, I was really confused and even a little bit fearful. So when I Googled, my cat's like just washing in the background. When I Googled the author, I learned that it was a white supremacist, and I didn't read through the book, but I saw enough, and it was pure evil and poison. And the gist of what I was getting was that it was really weaponizing and leveraging Christianity to establish a social hierarchy where women are inferior to men and establish a social order based on race. So I saw enough information to understand the expression and the ideology that it contained, and later I ended up burning the book. After that, it took years for me to digest some of the messages and to make some of these non-linear connections to my life experiences. So before this experience, racism in my mind and understanding was contained to a classroom and a textbook. Not me, not us. In the real world, there was a big disassociation to that. It was something that had happened in the past, and that is to say, in my current conscious awareness, it was contained to the past and to a classroom. But given this context and this new information, memories started flooding in, and micro and macro experiences where I had seen and yes, even participated in racism in my formative years. Previous to this experience, I had gotten my degree in social sciences, so my ongoing interest in race and gender-based issues shouldn't surprise any of you. I spent many hours learning about these things in class, but it really hadn't materialized until this point. I imagined that this book sat on someone's shelf and they held these beliefs, and this person was a neighbor that I could have run into at the grocery store, rubbed shoulders with as I was shopping. To my point, I would cross-reference the song Killing in the Name by Rage Against the Machine. So living in the South over the last 4 years, and it's allowed me to see ongoing and residual effects and the residue of this belief system, still concrete, still alive, pervasive. Through the next 4 years, I've dedicated a lot of time to learning and researching, and I've learned that this ideology is woven through the American tapestry. I came across a graphic on Pinterest, and it said, "Remember, white supremacy isn't the shark, it's the water. It's the culture." So let me be clear, this isn't me like wagging my finger at you, person on the internet. I don't know who you are. I don't know what perceptions or life experiences that you may have had. But if there's something like one point that you can take from this, it is that if you dig deep enough, you may trace some of these belief systems back to source, and it may surprise you where they came from. And I know that, like, you're a good-natured person, right? You don't want to uphold bad belief systems, and you may not realize the ways that you are upholding oppressive systems. So this is just some food for thought that we all have more to learn. I don't know if you've heard of the modern day conversation about the Roman Empire. If you haven't, I'll give you a brief breakdown. So basically, this was a TikTok trend, and what happened was that they asked men how often they thought about the Roman Empire, and to the surprise of many, men reported pretty high frequencies of thinking of this time period. And it's interesting that the collective consciousness of so many men allocates and a considerable amount of cognitive space thinking of this subject, living in your head rent-free, as the kids say. Well, I'm going to tell you about my Roman Empire, or a rent-free topic that I find myself circling back to and mulling over, and it is this: 7 generations. I have heard this in many places. Mostly I attribute it to indigenous sources, but we look to the past 7 generations and we look forward to the next 7 generations to dictate and guide our lives and choices. We all have a responsibility to regard the past and have a consideration for the future people who will inhabit this planet. I know that we've made great advances and progress in industry and technology, and I'm super grateful for these modern advantages, but it has come at a cost. The exploitation of people and the earth, and as I've looked at the last 7 generations, great devastation has also happened. Irreconcilable damage. We can't talk about this without talking about imperialism and colonialism. So scattered all through the world were indigenous peoples and cultures and ecosystems, and Europeans invaded and overtook these people, their lands, their resources, all around the globe. Violent and forceful. We see instances of this in India and New Zealand and South Africa, just to name a few. In America, they took the sacred land and the sacred animals and they desecrated them. We went to a museum last summer and we saw photographs of piles and piles of the American bison that were exterminated to near extinction. And this was done not out of need, but out of spite. And that's just one example of what has happened in this window of 7 generations. The dark past of slavery and racial segregation and inequality is capital T true, whether we collectively acknowledge and accept it or not. People were dehumanized, labor was exploited, and injustices remain to this day. The laws and methods may have changed, but the abuse still exists, and it is our responsibility to make repairs for their mistreatment and the exploitation and dehumanization that these communities have suffered. Martin Luther King and Malcom X fought for the same thing, but their strategies were different. During their time, there was a clear power differential and an abuse of power. Malcolm felt that he shouldn't commit the oppressed group to nonviolence against the oppressive, dehumanizing force that was in power, right? Does that make sense? You can't commit these guys to nonviolence against this force that's being dehumanizing. That makes sense. Martin, he felt that he could appeal to the oppressor by offering a hand of friendship, and he urged for peace, and he believed that in that fight for equality and justice, it was critical to not give any reason, be it retaliation or revenge, or incite any kind of squabbling. Don't give them a reason to feel justified in their hate, basically. He believed that if he was upright and offered friendship, he could change people and appeal to their better nature. MLK was assassinated 57 years ago yesterday, and I'm ashamed to say that we proved MLK wrong. This is all to say that we still have a lot of work to do, and currently the wind is blowing in the wrong direction. So going back to this idea of 7 generations, Martin Luther King's death was like 2 or 3 generations ahead of me. It wasn't that long ago. And for some of you watching, it was your generation. the murder of sacred buffalo due to colonialism. These events have taken place within this time frame of 7 generations. That's what has come before us. That's what we have a responsibility to unpack and consider and attend to. So everyone is going to have a unique opinion on the current state of things and being woke, blah, blah, blah. But account for this context and take in and consider the past 7 generations and the events that have occurred within this umbrella. Context is everything. The fact that we are tossing out historical facts and education, CRT, and diversity, equity, and inclusion, this is a huge backslide for us, make no mistake. In Chief Seattle's famous speech, he talks about what we do to the web, we do to ourselves. It speaks to the interconnectedness and interdependencies of us, the karmic boomerang. As far as our collective human knowledge goes, this is the only place where life is sustained, and that is capital T true. Up and down into this point, we don't know anywhere else factually that can sustain life. So much violence is being inflicted to and upon life, and it doesn't have to be this way. If we keep going on our current trajectory, the next 7 generations are life, interconnected and interdependent ecosystems that we rely on to sustain our life, to sustain our breath. Those systems are, and the inhumanity and dehumanization done to depreciated groups in this world is too heavy to bear. I want a more equitable future. When we have a myopic view of success founded on a narrow metric of merit, based on a skewed value system that has largely been about dominance and hierarchy, we all really lose out. Diversity is a strength in every way. As a melting pot, it is our country's greatest strength, and all people deserve dignity and decency. One more word, hegemony. The dominance of one group over another through political, economic, and cultural means. Say no to hegemony, say yes to unity and a diverse, inclusive, compassionate, and equitable tapestry. Martin Luther King's death was an injustice. You can honor his legacy by standing up for the injustices you see today. Now, look forward into our future. Use your imagination. What do you see to come for the next 7 generations?